Rupinder, over to you.
Rupinder,
You're on mute.
Rupinder?
Unable to hear you.
Rupinder ji, you are on mute.
Hi Rupinder, you're on mute.
I get that. I logged in from 2 devices, so I was like, there's no way I can be on mute. Turns out I was on mute. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you and then we'll get started. And timer, you can start timing it once the screen is shared. And please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes.
And it's a blank screen.
Yes. It's a blank.
And let me tell you that in this presentation, there are approximately 22 slides. So if at any point you feel like, going to sleep or throwing something at me, that isn't going to happen because you can't throw something at me, not until you need to. Just tell yourself that, okay, maximum 21 or 22 slides more to go. So let's get started. I have been in situations where I have taken a call, browsed the internet, played a video game, saw a movie on Netflix, gone on social media. Not all of them, maybe YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional network, so mostly YouTube and Facebook. Snored. Other people sleep, I've actually snored. And at that time, my camera was turned off, but my mic was turned on. And the host mercifully decided to mute me because someone thought that somewhere a cell phone was vibrating. Texted people, eaten a burger, had a pizza and French fries and Coke. And sometimes I've done multiple things together in an online meeting. So right now, if you feel like doing any of this to me as payback, I will totally understand that. What I'm trying to do here, ironically today, is to get you to not do these things. So how do I accomplish that? Well, you see, in a physical presentation, you have more control over the audience. It is not true in an online meeting, not until you turn on each and every participant's video and you're keeping one eye on the video. I'm told that chameleons can do that. They can look in one direction with one eye and in the other ones. We are not chameleons, we are human beings. So both our eyes are on one place at one time. So that phrase, keeping an eye on, does not really apply to us. So presenting on a virtual medium comes with its own set of challenges. And you've seen those challenges. And actually, there was a survey that was carried out. It was carried out by an organization. So when the mics are muted and the video is turned off, a lot of things happen behind the back. And this was something that was verified by a company by the name of Intercall, who published a report on hbr.org in which it said that what people do during a virtual call. 6% of the time, people are on phone calls. Surprisingly, they are on social media 43% of the time. I thought that this number would be much higher. But my faith in gluttony is restored when I realize that 55% of the time, people are eating or making food. I'm pretty sure that it is more skewed in favor of eating food rather than making it. 63% of the time people are emailing and 65% of the time they're doing a lot of other activities except these and attending the meeting. Folks, we live in an age where we have a very reduced attention span. So how do you get their attention? How do you do that? we have the attention span of a goldfish, which means that, which is about 8 seconds, which means that if we do not engage our audience within 8 seconds, we run the risk of losing that audience. How do we ensure that we do not lose that risk? And how does this amplify in the case of an online meeting? Let's see. In a study that was carried out by Albert Mehrabian, a celebrated psychologist. According to Albert Mehrabian, whenever you are speaking and whatever the audience is listening, only 7% of it is verbal. Only 7% of it is coming out of your mouth. Only 7% of it is grammar. Only 7% of it is wonderful words that were used. Only 7%. Remember that time when you wrote that eloquent love letter to someone you really liked, and you put in words, you added phrases, and then you went out and read to that person only to get rejected? Well, what you were focusing on was 7% of the conversation for about 90% of the time. That was the reason for your failure. Let your children never face that failure. Because a lot of our communication is vocal. Almost 38% of our communication is vocal, which means that this is the voice modulations. How loudly I speak, what is the pitch I use, or how slowly I speak, or how fast I go. All these variations are essentially constituting 38% of what you are trying to say. So together, verbal plus vocal make up for 45% of your speech. And therein lies the challenge with an online meeting. Many of us tend to turn off our videos. When we are speaking. What happens when we turn off our videos? People are not able to see our expressions. They're not able to see our body movement, howsoever limited it could be. They're not able to see our hands. And when they're not able to do that, they are not able to relate with us on a visual level. So if you've ever given a speech online, or if you've ever given a presentation online, remember how disappointing it was for you when somebody turned their video off. And even more disappointing was the part where somebody left the room. Because in a physical classroom, or in a physical presentation, you could tell them that if you could stay with us for another 5 minutes. Here you don't have control over that. And which is why what you're saying visually becomes very important. In fact, it becomes 55% important. So as much as you want the people to not turn off their videos, as a speaker, as a presenter, it is incumbent on you to not turn off your video. And in the same tone, it is incumbent on you to be presentable. Now, if I was wearing a t-shirt and a cap and giving this presentation, you guys would have probably said that, you know what, the guy is not serious about presenting. The point is that 55% of what you're saying is a visual communication. You have to engage them visually. See, the core aspect of communication is that the more senses you engage, the more you connect to the audience. So that is why you see successful TED Talk speakers actually recreate an environment. If they are walking through the Valley of Flowers, they'll actually recreate those smells for you. Through their words, they'll actually transport you into that area. So your sense of smell has been engaged, even though you can't smell a thing, but they'll build that smell for you. Because Till this time, you were looking at them in a visual sense. Now, your power to smell has been called into play. And the more senses that are called into play makes your speech or your presentation even better. So the first lesson is to keep your video on. Remember this. So these are some best practices that I have come up with. They are not exhaustive. There are many more. Some of them I will cover during the question and answer session. So if you are having any questions as of now, please write them down and I will try to accommodate most of them during my presentation. Now imagine you don't have video. What do? There was a time when we did not have television. We had radio, and we had radio stations such as the one that you're seeing right now on screen. The thing with a radio broadcast was that it was popular. It continues to be popular. There is a reason why all the FM radios are still in business. The thing that is missing from what they are saying is that 55%. And yet they are able to create that 55% through words. Through words, they are able to paint a picture. I once heard a TED Talk speech by a person who had scaled Mount Everest. Now, in that speech, she describes a deep gorge, it's a 500-foot drop, and just about 2 feet of width on a bridge that is made out of ice that they have to cross. And that bridge is about 20 feet across from one corner to the other. And the way she described it is that when she walked across, her first thought was not to look down. Her second thought was, what if she fell? Because people there have only enough oxygen to go up and come back to the base camp. Nobody will come and save you. And the temperatures are so extreme that should you expose even one finger, it will freeze. It will simply freeze. You could literally break it off. Are you there right now? Can you imagine what it is like to be there as of now? Are you transported to that place? Well, in my own limited way, I tried. But that person did not use a visual. She used only words to describe that 20 feet walk across a place where one misstep would have resulted you plummeting down 500 feet. Never to be found, your body never to be recovered. That was the kind of environment she created. She had this mental image inside her head, and she created that mental image inside everyone's head. And that is what you're supposed to do as a presenter. You're supposed to paint a picture. If a person has never been to Niagara Falls before, they should be able to visualize what Niagara Falls is like. If they've never seen Mona Lisa before, they should at least have an idea so that the next time when they see Mona Lisa, they should be able to recall that this is something that I heard about in a speech. I never saw that person, but this unmistakably is Mona Lisa. So second lesson, paint a picture with words. I see some of you are trying to paint some picture with lines. Please do not do that because it is spoiling already horrible presentation, right? It's not that I've made the best of them. Now let's move on. You see this page, Google. This is my Google homepage. Look at the simplicity on this page. This page means business. I can search from here. I can go across to any of my favorite bookmarks. I can do all of that. But look at the empty space around Google, around this content in the middle. Look at this empty space. You will see a lot of designs like these. For example, if you go to an Apple store, in the center, you will see a lot of, you will see that gadget, you will see an iPad, you will see an iPhone, you will perhaps see a MacBook, but that's in the center of the room. That's it. Around that place, there is a lot of white space in which you can walk. And that actually is minimalism. And that becomes very important in an online meeting. You say the most in the least amount of words.
It's a green for you, Rupinder.
In fact, what I would suggest is that your font size in your presentation should be 30 minimum. Minimum font size 30. Why am I saying that? Because a lot of what you are saying should be coming from your mouth. I have seen so many presentations that are crammed with content. It is almost as if having a white space is illegal on the screen. So if there is one small piece of white space, let me cram that with content. Just like I did with that first slide, remember? When I crammed it with food at the bottom. You think, and a lot of people think that cramming the slide with content will make sure that people get all the information. It is wrong. It defeats the purpose. One, people are able to read much faster than they are able to listen. And they will read the content. By the time you come around to the content for them, they've already read that content. And it becomes kind of a boring thing. So keep your minimum font size to 30 in your presentations. You need to have interactive elements. For example, you could have a survey in which you use those yes, no buttons that are there in the Zoom call. You could have quizzes and you could have polls. Now, traditional educational theory says that you need to have some sort of an interaction every 5 minutes. In an online meeting, it comes down to 3 minutes. It was an article that I read on HBR. So have an interaction every 3 minutes. An interaction need not necessarily be where the audience engages, but you could tell them a story every 3 minutes. For example, I don't know if you noticed or not, but approximately every 3 minutes or so, I have been telling you a story. I've been giving you a fact. For example, minimum font size 30. The story about that climber on Everest. Painting the picture with your words. Moving on. What does this tell you? This is the caricature of a mobile. When you are designing your presentation, design it for the mobile medium. Why? Because, or whenever you're presenting also, optimize it for the mobile medium. Why? Because a mobile screen is small. It is the bare minimum where you want to get the most of your information. If it can come right on a mobile, then it will definitely come right on a TV screen or on a screen. So optimize it for a mobile device. And when I say a mobile device, consider a relatively inexpensive mobile phone. You can consider HD quality for that matter. You can do that. But do not assume that your audience is watching this on an iPad. An iPad is more evolved than, let's say, an Asus phone that comes for maybe about 10,000 to 12,000 rupees. go for that audience, because a lot of that audience will be accessing this on the mobile. Now, when it comes to accessing on the mobiles, there are several, how do I put it? There are several limitations that mobile users have. For example, as a laptop user, you can see a lot of visual elements that you can interact with. You could see probably the voting button on the same screen. You could probably have the participants list on the same screen. You have that flexibility. But on a mobile device, it is just one thing at a time on the screen. You have to swipe to get to the other screen. And that is what makes it difficult. So you have to decide what is it that you're going to present. What is the most important thing to present? Is it a quiz at one point? Is it a survey that you want to carry out? Or is it just your face? Or is it just your presentation? So that has to be prioritized. And that is what is optimizing for a mobile device.
Yellow.
Now, I use Zoom a lot, and this is what my screen looks like. What I do is that I use two screens. On one screen, I have something like this, which tells me that I am unmuted. By the way, this is a screenshot that I have not started my video, and that there is one participant that I can access my polls and record. I can perform my basic functions, but this is on one screen. On the other screen, I have my polls, I have my group chat so that I can read whatever is coming, and I have my participants list so that I can see these yes, no. Whenever I ask questions, I can get those responses. So if you can afford it, and it is going to become a necessity soon, always have two monitors. And trust me, once you get used to a dual monitor, you will not want to go back to a single monitor. So what I do is that, so I use two monitors. The other thing that I do is I log in from a separate device from audio. So right now you will see two Rupinders. I'm pretty sure a lot of you will be disappointed because you can't handle one Rupinder. And right now there are two Rupinders in this conference room. But I'm using one device for audio so that my audio does not suffer. And that audio device is on a separate internet connection. It is utilizing the 4G connection of my phone. And this device on which you are seeing the presentation is connected through the Wi-Fi at my home. Why am I doing that? Because I trust my speaking skills more than I trust my visual skills. And there might be a case where the power might go off and you might not see the presentation, but you will still be able to hear me over the mobile. So that is why I use two separate devices, one for audio and one for video. And then I run my presentation on the primary screen, the screen on which I have the camera. Why do I do that? I do that because of eye contact. It is very easy for your eyes to get distracted. You might have noticed when I was presenting the other screen, my eyes were going slightly upwards. That's because I was looking at the other screen, like I did just now. So I keep my presentation on my primary screen. I swap those monitors. So my secondary monitor becomes my primary monitor, and my primary monitor becomes my secondary monitor. Another tip, and that is to do with these situations. Does this sound familiar? Am I audible? Is my video visible? Not like that. Oh, what? You want me to talk now? Could you mute yourself? You'll find a person who's doing that. Unmuted. I once had a person who was actually talking to someone and brokering a deal on phone. Very famous journalist. And he looked at me and I was giving him this look. What are you doing? I was like, oh, am I supposed to not talk while there are people. I said, no, you're supposed to mute and preferably turn your video off when you're doing that. And he kept on referring to me throughout that speech that Rupinder is one person, Kadus person, a person who's always grumpy and stuff like that. But the point is, don't do that. It is very distracting to the audience. Anyway, the interest level is already down. That interaction is already down. You're having to do so many things. You don't want to contend with somebody who's blowing a trombone. And then what are you trying to say? Try to be as clear as possible. Try to keep it as simple as possible. Try not using obfuscated words. Try not to make an impression. And last but not the least, stop lamenting about physical meetings. Those are not going to happen anytime soon. Those are not going to happen, at least till December, especially if you are a corporate club. That is not going to happen anytime soon. Learn to live with that. So these are the don'ts, and don't worry about taking notes. I have a PDF of this. I will share it with Dr. Kiran and she will share it with you. I will also share it in the chat. Now, here is a tip to ensure that you always make eye contact. Now, this is your monitor. If it doesn't look like a monitor, please treat it as a monitor. This is my limited drawing skills. And if you see the circle in between, this is your camera. How do you ensure that you make consistent eye contact with this camera? What I do is that I put a post-it note which says, look here, right next to that camera. See, when we're talking on a screen, we have this habit of looking at the content on the screen. We want to look at if somebody is interrupting us. We want to look at what is happening outside the window. We want to look at the other distractions. But having this there is a constant reminder that you have to look towards the camera, and that is the key to making eye contact. It is very difficult, especially in the beginning. It comes with practice. Even I have not mastered it, but this could really help you maintaining eye contact. Now let's come back to the page that I started with, Google. See how simple that design is. So that is the lesson. Keep it simple.
It is red for you, Rupinder.
Thank you. And I am almost at the end. This is perhaps the best advice that I could give you. If you forget everything that I spoke about today, and I've been speaking for well over half an hour, and trust me, that is the longest I've spoken ever since I got married. So if there is one thing you want to take away from this, it is keep it simple. The simpler you try to keep it, the easier it becomes for you. There was this renowned economist during the depression phase in 1920s and 1930s, E.F. Schumacher. He said that any idiot can make a thing complicated. It takes a genius to keep it simple. If you look at that Google page that I showed you earlier, it was simplicity. One single search bar and my bookmarks. That's it. Nothing else. Come here, interact with the things that you want to with most. Now contrast that with, let's say, the LinkedIn pages when LinkedIn was first launched. It was a plethora of links. I could probably recommend someone. I could probably browse for jobs. God knows what else. Now, of course, it's become more streamlined. Now it's become much more simple. So try to keep it simple. And if you still have questions, you see this handsome young man with a teacup in his hand and a mustard sauce bottle in front of him for some reason, and an empty plate, of course. What else would you expect? Feel free to reach out to me. And now I'm ready to take questions from you. Thank you so much. You've been a very patient audience. You can clap now. Questions? I'll stop the share and I'll take questions. Anyone?
Hi, Rupinder.
Somebody said hi, Rupinder. And
Hi, Rupinder. This is Nivedita.
Hi, Nivedita. Tell me.
I wanted to ask, is it a good idea to, at the beginning of the presentation, when you are a presenter, to instruct your attendees that you will not shut the video Is it a good idea, or is it a sort of a dictator thing which will be taken as negative?
It is a very good idea. It is the least that you expect, since they've come to listen to you. And if they, especially if they paid to listen to you, they might as well give you their attention. Number one. Having said that, we live in a world which is kind of democratic. And in an online medium, it becomes very difficult to actually not expect that people will keep their videos on. It is a bit of a challenge there. So if they turn it off, I would suggest focus on your presentation, make your presentation more interesting so that the audience stays engaged, rather than kind of monitoring them. Hey, you turned your video off. How dare you turn your video off? Do you know who I am? That kind of a thing. So it's always better to focus on your presentation, but it is a good practice. Ask them to turn their videos on.
Okay.
Good
All right.
question.
Thank you.
Hi Rupinder, this is Rishabh.
Hi, Rishabh.
Hi, actually, that's a slightly different question related to the impromptu speaking. I mean, I think you have been like really excellent in this thing. While speaking, getting the topic, I at times get blank. And after like 1 minute after speaking and the thing is over, I'm like thinking, okay, I could have actually spoken so many things. So do you think we can have any such structure for initial speakers like me to actually not exactly excel, maybe like improve in the table topics? I know it's a different question from the words.
I'll tell you two things. One, there is a tutorial I have on impromptu speaking. I'll share it with you. And that is actually oriented at people who are new to impromptu speaking, who find it difficult. Two, about that feeling that I could have said this, I could have said that. That was a 1 to 2 minute speech, right? What stops you from writing a 5 to 7 minute speech on it? What stops you from writing a prepared speech on the exact same topic? That regret you can convert into an opportunity. I write most of my speeches like that. I get my topics through table topics only. Most of my speeches are actually table topics that I feel that I could have done better. Does that answer your question? I will share the link with you. That is a promise. Okay.
Thank you.
And Dr. Kiran will tell you that I keep my promises. Okay.
Agree.
Anything else? Anyone? Any other question?
I have a question, Rupinder.
Yes, Mohit, tell me. How can I help?
So, yeah, this is particularly around the point you made about having two devices, one for audio and another for video, if I understood correctly. So, when I do that in Zoom meeting, my understanding is that the audio is the one which determines what video is going to play for the audience. So, for example, if I start my audio on one device, it would show my picture without showing my video. I've been struggling with that a little bit. I don't know if I'm able to articulate it well enough. Do you get the question?
So if I understand it correctly, what you're trying to do is that you're trying to play a video in your presentation. And will you also...
sorry, Rupen. No, that's not the question. Basically, I want to have my self appearing for the audience while I am speaking, just like you were doing right now. But what ends up happening is that when I'm speaking on one device on audio, it presumes that that is where the active screen should be. So it enables.
Okay. So right now what is happening, because you're seeing a different screen right now, that is what you're saying. That is easily resolved with spotlighting the video. So if I spotlight the video, it becomes easy. Does it make sense?
Not too sure what that spotlighting means.
So there is an option to spotlight your video. At least in Zoom, there is an option to spotlight your video. It doesn't matter where the sound is coming from.
Is it something related to tagging the video?
No, it's
like
called spotlight. If you're a host, you can spotlight the video, or you could request the host to spotlight your video.
Okay.
Anyone? Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, Rupinder, I have one question.
Yes. May I know your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Natraj.
Yeah, yes, Natraj, tell me.
In today's world where the patience is tested of the bosses, and particularly in the corporate world, where there's one school of thought that every damn thing of what you want to say, the universe of what you want to say while you present, it shouldn't exceed 4 slides. And then the tendency is to cram the slide. While you have another school of thought to say that keep it simple, keep it spacious, keep it less and less content and more talk. So it's good. It's a bit of contradictory balance that we need to do.
Absolutely, it is absolutely. And my experience has been that and there is this book, it's called Slideology, and it was I think it is written by Guy Kawasaki, and it talks about a person who was a venture capitalist where people would come to him asking for money, and they would give him hours and hours of presentation. He would get bored. So he came up with this 10, 20, 30 rule for presentation. He said your presentation should not be more than 10 slides long and should not occupy my time for more than 20 minutes, which is like 2 minutes per slide. And the smallest font size should be 30. That is where I got the idea of the smallest font size. And he said that if 30 is too much of a stretch for you, find the youngest person in the room and make the smallest font size that person's age. And by that, I mean, do not bring a toddler into the room. Okay. So a lot of the presentation, the idea of a presentation, Natraj, is that it should come from you. It should not come from the screen. If it is coming from the screen, I might as well send them a Word document or a PDF with all the details. People at a CXO level are not bothered with details. They are just looking at results. So if you have a slide that showcases the results, they are more interested in that. And if they want to dig deeper, they can dig deeper. There is this excellent book called The Pyramid Principle. If you follow that, it says that you need to have the basic idea at the top. You speak about the basic idea. And if they want to traverse that pyramid down, where it gets more detailed, they will ask you those questions and you can answer those questions. But at the top should be a piece of information that effectively encapsulates everything. That makes sense?
Yeah,
For example, I said font size 30.
Yeah.
Now, intriguing, right? But there were 2 other details that I left out. But I felt that the most important one was keeping the font size at 30 and letting the presentation come from you. Make sense?
Yeah. It's just about the balancing it.
Thank you. Any other question? Anyone?
Hi, Rupender. Good morning. This is Kuldeep Singh.
Yes, sir.
Small question. Say, is it a good idea to tell the audience in upfront, like say you told that how many slides you have got, whether it's how say positive, whether it works as a positive thing, or it may go like you to say if you tell me you got say 20, 23 slides, so I may lose interest or I may gain interest in it. I may get into it.
Excellent point, Kuldeep. My intent was humor. Honestly speaking, my intent was humor. I don't know how it came across, but my intent was humor. And in a physical meeting, it works very well. It kind of breaks the ice with them. I tell them that, look, I'm going to torture you for the next 20 minutes, but this is only 10 slides long. So you can count the number of slides if you're not interested in the presentation. I don't actually want them not to be interested, but it's just that I'm trying to break the ice with them. And you're right, it can come across as, a negative thing that, oh God, especially if you're not able to carry off humor, then it becomes a challenge. I, for one, like to think that I can carry across humor because people like Mohit and Dr. Kiran and some other people in the room have been telling me that I am humorous by nature. So I go by what they are saying. But you are absolutely right. It can be taken the other way. So if you can carry it off, go ahead and do it.
No, in fact, thank you very much. I liked it, and I also endorse Dr. Kiran's view that you are humorous, and then we did enjoy it.
Right. I just wish my wife could be listening to this, but yeah, sure, go ahead.
one more small thing. I have seen some presentations by Byju's. These guys, while they explain or they discuss certain thing, at that time they got certain sort of digital pen or something. Like say, I got that clue while you are telling that if you write everything and the audience, they are able to read it and then they will lose interest in what you are going to say.
Yes.
So maybe there are two things that were coming to my mind. The first one, maybe you can plan your presentation in the sense that your idea that you want to put across, they come in your presentation at the right time, you start saying them. Or second, you can maybe sort of use of digital pen or some marker wherein you can write exactly, so that you take the audience there, the scene.
Yes, and Zoom offers you a whiteboard feature, and you can share the whiteboard and you can write whatever you want on the whiteboard. So that is one. Where I was coming from was that let's say I have a 2000 word PDF that I have to convert to a presentation. I have seen people cram their slides with that 2000 word PDF, literally speaking. So there will be 1800 words on one slide, because they think that 1800 words on one slide will cover everything that they want to cover. It actually achieves the opposite. It's like, those home loan agreements where they'll write copious content and they expect you to read it. The fact is you don't, you just sign across the dotted line. This is a presentation. This is not a loan contract that I will just sign across. If I get bored, I will just get up and leave. And alluding to the question that Nataraj asked, if I'm showing it to a CEO that, look, here is the complete information that you wanted, I might have my termination letter in the next half an hour or so, because I wasted their time. So that is where I was coming from. Does it make sense?
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. So we've got about 4 minutes left. May I have a couple of questions? Anyone else who has questions?
Hi, Rupinder. Good morning. This is Mona.
Yes, Mona, tell me.
Hi, Rupinder. I have a question regarding the point which you made is how to make meetings interactive. The challenge that I'm facing nowadays is that I have daily checkpoints in a corporate setup with my team. And it's like everyone is having mute on and video off. So it's like in physical meeting, I could just look at them and they would respond. But in
They
physical,
could raise their
I can.
hands or something like that.
Yes. So now no one is responding back, and it's like I'm the only one who's speaking. So it gets really boring at one point. So how can I make them it's more interactive so that people will respond? Otherwise, the entire meeting I'm speaking, everyone else is on mute.
Everyone is just listening. Get
yeah.
that? So are you using Zoom by any chance?
We are using Microsoft Teams.
You're using Microsoft Teams. So even within Microsoft Teams, there are some interactive elements. So for example, there could be polling, there could be opinions. I don't know, but there, for example, in Zoom, there are a lot of interactive elements. If you go to the participant screen, you'll have an option to say yes or say no or to chat. That is one way of taking their attention. The other way could be you could ask them to turn on their videos and just raise their hands like this if they agree. That is another way. There is the raise hand feature. What I have tried in one of my meetings is that I prepare some polls or surveys in advance, and then I tell them to take those polls or surveys. And it is not necessary that I have to do them in Zoom or in Microsoft Teams. A simple Google form will work. So I share the URL. I tell them that, okay, I'm giving you 1 minute. In 1 minute, please respond to the question that I have asked. And then I go about explaining it that, okay, 30% of you responded this way, 40% of you responded this way. I have also tried having an advanced quiz. I ask people to answer the questions in advance, and then I base my questions off the responses by sharing those responses on the screen. So those are a few ideas that you could try, Mona. I'm not sure if this helps or not.
It's yellow. No, it certainly does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we are at yellow, and one last question that I would like to take. Otherwise, I'll be happy to take questions on email also. One last question. Anyone? Going once. Going twice. And sold. Thank you so very much. You're not only a very patient audience, you are also a very supportive audience. You made sure that I finished at time. I owe it to you. What would have I done without you? And stuff like that. Like to thank my mom, my dad, my dog, my cat, my carrot, my parrot. But I'm digressing right now. But the point of this presentation, and I will share the PDF with you on the group itself, and with Dr. Kiran so that she can share it with you later. The one thing that you need to remember is keep it simple. The more complicated you try to make it, the more animation effects you try to have, it will only make things complicated. And when technology is involved, things get complicated. And when things get complicated, as a very famous general said in World War II, they go wrong. So try to keep it simple as much as possible. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. And with that, I will hand it back to our host of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. A big round of applause for Toastmaster Rupinder Singh DTM.
Thank you, Rupinder. Thank you so much. With